this, so we can just leave this part. Okay, so let's say fill the left hand side and put them side by side. Let's see what we have just did. So it's really clear what we have done, right? We basically take all those previous endpoints and prefix them with /API/nodes. So if you send a request to /API/nodes, you're gonna hit this and you would get this response. If you hit with a post request, you would get this response. If you hit /API/nodes /SOMEID with the put method, you would get this response, and same for the delete. I hope all makes sense, right? Let's actually test this out. If we just visit this part with a GET request, we should be able to get this response. So I'll go right here, I'll say /API/nodes, let's refresh, we just fetch the nodes. Let's try to say it'll be /API/nodes /something. Let's do it. Say, if you refresh now, this should say cannot found, but let's say /something. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. We just link them by prefixing this. So that was the very first thing that we have done. Now again, what we can do, even organize this even more, because if you think about it, these functions can get really large, right? What we would like to do, just take them and put as a separate file and folder. This is what we call a controller, right? We have a bunch of different controllers, so this is the first one, second one, so on and so forth. Let's create the controllers, and these controllers will be for the nodes. Let's say nodes controller.js, and then basically we will cut them one by one. So I'll just cut this, let's paste this in, and let's call this as a function. So you can create it as an arrow function. Let's say const get all nodes. Okay, this is the function. Now we can export it. Let's say get all nodes, and make sure to put the .js at the end. If you wanted to, you can make this as a regular function as well. Let's do it pretty quickly. I'll say we will export this function. Let's say export function get all nodes. We will delete this part and this one. Okay, this is the other way of writing it. Let's just have it as a function or arrow function, it doesn't really matter. And you can mark them as async if you really wanted to. It's just a regular function, right? So you can call it as async or not, depending on what you'll be doing with it. Okay, now we can get this one. I know that we are going slowly, but I just don't really want to rush. Let's just go slowly. I'll go ahead and duplicate this one. Let's say
this time, 'cause I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Hey, don't worry, I'm fine. It's been weeks now. We haven't talked. What have you done since? Did you again fell in love like you promised me some time ago now? Have you seen the devil since? Did he again promise to give you everything you give him? Please don't help me this time, 'cause I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Hey, don't worry, I'm fine. I'm leaving now for another show. What have you done since? Did you again fell in love like you promised me time ago?
Create a node, or let's just say create node, and I'll just paste what we have copied. I'll just leave the response. Okay, let's do the same thing for this one. Say create node, import it from this file. This is to update a node. I'll say export function, paste this in, give it a name like update node, and let's try to do the same thing for the delete. Say delete node, and I'll get the response. Let's cut this and paste this in. Okay, we would like to import them now. I'll delete this entire thing. I'll delete the extra spaces. Okay, so what we have done is basically take these controllers and put it under the specific file. So everything should be working as exactly as it was before. Now the beauty of this code base is that later at some point, let's say you want to add some stuff related to products. You can basically create this route and create this file. Let's say it'll be product routes. So you can add your product routes under a specific file. Let's say you will have another one for, let's say, posts. Maybe you're building some social media application. You would add, let's say, something related to payments. You would add something like emails. So you get the point. This file otherwise would be incredibly large, but now it's just only 5 lines of code where you just separated every single service into its own file. Okay, so I hope all makes sense, and we even more optimized it by creating this controller file. So that's kind of it for this section I was going to say, but one more thing. One of the best practices is to create a source folder. So you can create this one and put everything related to application under the source. So just go ahead, put the controllers and the routes as well as the server.js file. But if you do so, you will notice that your application will crash. Now why is that? Can you spot? Well, it's because under the scripts, you say run the server.js file. But now it is under the source folder, right? It's not under the backend. So you would like to say it's under the source. Let's fix this one as well. And you don't really have to fix this part, but let's be consistent and let's say our main entry point is the server.js file, which is under the source folder. Okay, so if you save, kill the terminal and run this from scratch, it should be working properly. Okay, so that's kind of it for the the optimization section. So with that, in the next section, we'll get started with the database. Alright, so in this section, we are going to get started with the MongoDB, which is going to be our database. It's completely free to get started with. You don't really need to pay anything, or you don't even need to provide with your credit card. So head over to mongodb.com and create an account. I have already done this, so I will go ahead and log in. I have logged in with my Google account. It'll just redirect me to the dashboard. Okay, so we will create a project in a second, but first let's go over these nodes that I have. We basically have 3 different comparisons between SQL databases versus NoSQL databases. So MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and then we have some SQL databases like Postgres or let's say MySQL, so on and so forth. And for the NoSQL databases, we have other examples like Cassandra or let's say Neo4j, so on and so forth. Okay, so in SQL databases, data is stored in tables with rows and columns. So it is like a spreadsheet. And then in NoSQL databases, they store data like JSON or key value pairs, which is good for changing data shapes. So the SQL databases are a little bit more strict when it comes to how you store the data, but NoSQL databases are a little bit more flexible. And then the SQL databases use SQL language, so you would use things like select, insert, so on and so forth. But when it comes to NoSQL databases, they would use a query language. And each NoSQL database has its own way of querying, often simpler and faster for certain tasks. And we're gonna see this once again. And then finally, you might be asking, when do we use a SQL database and when do we use a NoSQL database? So you would use a SQL database whenever you need like complex queries, or let's say you have a lot of relationships in your application. So to give an example, let's say you are building a really large social media application where you have a bunch of different relations between your data, right? So this could be a perfect example to use a SQL database. Or let's say you are building a really large or just a bank application, right? Everything has to be really strict and you have a bunch of relations. And when it comes to NoSQL databases, so it is great for fast changing data or huge amounts of data. So these are the things that you can keep in mind. But as a beginner, it doesn't really matter if you use MongoDB or Postgres or MySQL, right? All you want at the moment is to have a place where you can store the data and interact with it, manipulate it, so on and so forth, right? Okay, I hope that makes sense. So with all this in mind, we can head over to dashboard and create a new project. So here I'll just say view all my projects, and then I'll create a new one. Let's call this as thinkboard. Let's say next, create the project where we need to create a cluster. So we'll go with the free plan. Okay, so let's say create a deployment. I'll leave everything as it is. Okay, come on. Let me go over this AI check. Once it is done, you will be redirected to this page. Let's copy the password. So just make sure you copy it. Let's say create the database use. user and then choose a connection method. So we will connect to our deployment. I'll leave everything. Let's copy the password. So just make sure once it is done, you will be redirected to this page. Let's copy the password. So just make sure you copy it and you will let me go over this AI check. Once it is done, you will be redirected to this page. Let's copy the password. So just make sure you copy it. Let's say create the database user and then choose a connection method. So we will connect to our database from our Node.js application. So let's select the drivers option. Okay. So the first option is to select your driver and version. We'll just leave them as it is. The second step is to install MongoDB. But instead of using the MongoDB driver, we'll be using something called Mongoose. So let's search for it. Okay, we'll be using this. It's a lot more cleaner and it'll give some strict rules where we can have our schema, the schema validation, which is something that we'll get into. So we can skip this step. And finally, once it is done, like they will provide you a connection string. Now that we got this, for it. So the first AI check schema, the schema validation, which is something that we'll get into. So we can skip this step. And finally, once it is done, like they will provide you a connection string. Now that we got this, we can copy it. I'll have the password open so that it is included. I'll just copy it. If you cannot see your password, it would look like this, and you would delete this part, paste your password that we have just copied a couple of seconds ago. But probably you have this option, so go ahead, turn this on, copy it, and paste it to your code base. For now, just put it under the server.js, we'll be using it. Okay, so we can just say done, and we can actually get started with it. Now, just before we connect to this database, I would like to go under the network access. So currently, this would include your current IP address. From this IP address, you can connect to this database, but we don't really want to get any errors. So I'll say add an IP address where we can access from anywhere, right? So I'll say confirm. This will take take around 10 to 15 seconds. Once it is done, it should be active. Okay, so it's done, it's active. In my case, it took around 30 seconds, but now we are good to go. Let's go under the clusters, let's say browse collections, but obviously we don't really have anything, right? 0 databases and 0 collections. So let's use this connection string where we can connect to our database. But before we do so, let's open up the terminal, let's kill the backend. Just make sure you are under the backend, and as I said, we would like to use Mongoose. So say npm install, you would say Mongoose, and you would press enter normally, but let's use a specific version, as I said at the beginning, so that if you're watching this tutorial at a future date, it should still work as expected. So I'll go with 7.0.3. We'll go with this version. Let's install it. Okay, now we can clear the terminal and let's install it. Okay, now we can clear the terminal and say npm run dev. Okay, now let's copy this connection string and try to connect to our database. I'll just cut this, and to be able to connect to my database, I would like to create a specific folder where we can put our configurations. So I'll say config, and let's say db.js file. Here we'll create a function where we can connect to the database. So I'll say const connect db, and this will be an async function, let's say, and we'll have a try and catch block. In the try, we would like to connect our database successfully, but if we got some errors, we'll hit the catch where we can just add a console log. Now first thing I'd like to do is importing, let's say import mongoose from the mongoose package. Okay, so it's really easy to connect your database. All you have to say mongoose.connect and then put your connection string. So I'll just paste this in. Now this will take a little bit of time, so we'd like to await this, and then once this is done, let me just kill the left hand side. I'll say console log, let's say MongoDB connected successfully. Okay, and in the catch we can add another console log. Let's even say console.error. I'll say error connecting to MongoDB, and then we can put the error.message, or let's just put the error itself. Now let's try to save this and try to call this method. So I'll say export this from this file, and under the server.js we can just call that method. So I'll say call the connect db, and just make sure to put the .js at the end. Now let's save and take a look at the terminal. Okay, MongoDB connected successfully. Now if you try to write this, right, I'll just delete the some part of the password. Now it is wrong. Okay, here we can see we got an error. It says bad authentication. The authentication has failed. So we hit the catch block, as you can tell. take a look at the terminal. Okay, MongoDB connected successfully. Now if you try to break this, right, I'll just delete the some part. part of the password. Now it is wrong. Okay, here we can see we got an error. It says bad authentication. The authentication has failed. So we hit the catch block. As you can tell, it says error connecting to MongoDB, and then we would see the error itself. So I'll do Ctrl-Z, bring this back, and we are good to go. Now the other thing that you would like to do in the catch block, if you got some errors, you would like to exit the process. So you'll say process.exit, and the status code is going to be 1. Now 1 means exit with failure. Okay, but if you had 0, that means success. But since we are in the catch block, this is going to be 1, which means failure. Now let's save this code and take a look at our database. I'll try to refresh this page. We should see some kind of a database, or we cannot really see it because we didn't really create any data or any collections. But the problem that I'm trying to mention is that we didn't really give a name for our database, right? This is currently called as test, okay? So if we don't put anything, your database will be test. But let's try to update it. I'll say notes_db, and you would put your database name just before the question mark. So this is something to keep in mind. We just updated that. And once we create a database, once it is visible in this dashboard, I'll mention this once again, we will see this name. Now you might be thinking this code is perfectly fine, but it's not really, because if you deploy this code to GitHub, if someone opens up your db.js file, they can see your connection string, and they can use it, like they can connect your database because they're able to see your username and your password. So what you'd like to do, cut this from here and put it somewhere else. And this is where the .env file comes into play. So under the backend, let's shrink everything. We will create the .env file, and we can put our connection string. So we'll say mongo_URI, and let's say this will be equal to this value. We can delete the quotes. Okay, just paste this in as the string that you have just cut it. Okay, let's save. Now how do we use this value? How do we get this key and then the value? So to be able to use this, you need to get a package. Let's open up the terminal. I'll say npm install.env. So this is a package that allows you to get access to environment variables. So this is what we call an environment variable, by the way. Now that we have installed the package, let's run the app. So I think we are getting a deprecation warning. This is something that we can take a look at it in a second. For now, just ignore this, it's not really important. And it has nothing to do with the .env package, so for now just ignore that. We'll go under the server.js. Let's try to configure the .env package. Now why do we need it? So if you currently say console log process.env and then your environment variable name, now this will give you undefined in the terminal. So here you can see you cannot read this value. To be able to use it, you need to say import.env from the .env package. Let's type this out, and then we would say .env.config. Call this method. Once you have done this, you should be able to get that value instead of our connection strings. I'll just try as it a secret, normally ignore you, and to config to import all port and put it under the .env. So this is exactly what I'll be to get your port and put it under the .env. So this is exactly what I'll be doing. I'll just say port all uppercase and I'll put this value. Now you don't have to do it, but I would recommend it. So let's get this value. I'll say const port, which is going to be coming from the .env. say port is equal to use this as it was before. This version is causing this. So what I'll be doing is maybe this version is because code. Now what's up with this error? I don't really know. I think it's because of the Mongoose package. Maybe this version is causing this. So what I'll be doing is kill the backend. Let's say npm install mongoose at latest. Okay, now it's been updated. So in your case, just don't type at latest. Go ahead, put this version. Okay, so just say npm install mongoose and paste this in. It should update it. Now let's try to run the app. Hopefully you'll get rid of that error. For the warning, okay, now we don't really have that warning that we got previously. And for the .env, by the way, I think I just said npm install .env. Go ahead, add this at the end. If you have already done this, it's completely fine. Just do it once again, add this at and the version itself. And then you can start your backend. Okay, so server started and then MongoDB connected successfully. Now the next thing that we would like to do is to create a model. So let's try to create this folder called models, and we'll have only one model that will be node.js. So this is one of the conventions where you capitalize the very first letter and you put it as a singular, right? So you don't say nodes. Instead it is the node.js. So we will create a model for the node because let me show you the end result. Here we have some screenshots. So every single node has some values like a title, a description, right? This is the description of the node, and then we have things like created at date and update. So it might sense, but let's see this in action. And then you would first create a schema. So let's say first you would create a schema, and then second you would create a model based off of that schema. Let's see how that works. So first let's create the schema. I'll say const node schema. You can call this anything, but this is the name that I'll have. I'll say new mongoose.schema.
Imagina que eres médico, abogado o financiero y te enfrentas a esto. Más de 500 páginas de texto y tienes que encontrar.
And this wants you to add an object. So here we will put our fields. Let's say every single node will have a title, which is going to be type of string. Let's just say type is going to be string, and then we can say it'll be required. So every single node has to has a title. Let's say required will be equal to true. And then the other field that we would like to have is the content, which is the description. I'll call it as content. You can call this anything, but I would say just follow along with me. So put the content, let's say, again, type will be string, and then it'll be required as well. So I'll just duplicate that and put this in. Now the other thing we'd like to have is the created at field, so that we can put the created at right here in the node. So you can type this out manually, right? You can say created at and put this as a date, but the better option is to add another object. So here just say timestamps will be equal to true. Okay, so MongoDB by default will give you the created at and updated at fields if you add this timestamps of true. And I would highly recommend you to add this option in your schemas. Okay, now that we have the schema, we can create the model based off of this schema. So I'll say const node. Again, it should be capitalized and singular, right? Let's say mongoose model. Call this as node and just take a look at the schema that we have. Then we'll say export default this model. So what this says, basically create a node model based off of this schema. So every single node will have a title, it'll have a content, and then it'll add the timestamp whenever they create it. So we'll be using this node in other files to be able to interact with the nodes, where we can create one, update one, delete, so on and so forth. Okay, so just go ahead, save this file, and we should be good to go. And I have just updated these comments so that you can have it in the source code. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this section, where we have created a database, connect to it, and then we have created our model, right? And finally, we also learned about the .env package, where we can access our environment variables so that we can keep our secrets separately from our codebase. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this section. In the next one, we can get started with our actual controllers. They are currently just hard-coded, they are a test. We would like to obviously communicate with our database, where we can fetch them, create them, update, and delete. Okay, so with this in mind, I'll see you in the next section.